The macabre history of the Quells, a billionaire, paid to hide 11 children in a desert compound in the spring of 1997, as America celebrated unprecedented economic prosperity and technological advancement. Investigative journalist Rachel Morrison received an anonymous letter that would consume the next 5 years of her career and ultimately expose one of the most disturbing cases of wealth-enabled child exploitation in modern history. The letter, postmarked from Reno, Nevada, contained only a photograph and a single line of text. "They keep children in the desert. Look for the Quells." The photograph showed what appeared to be a large, fortress-like compound set against the stark landscape of the Nevada desert. The structures were clearly expensive and professionally constructed, with high walls, security towers, and multiple buildings arranged around what looked like residential courtyards. But what made the image unsettling was the complete absence of any identifying features. No signs, no road markers, no visible connection to the outside world. Morrison, who had built her reputation investigating corporate corruption and government cover-ups, initially dismissed the letter as the work of a conspiracy theorist or disgruntled employee. But something about the photograph's clinical quality and the deliberate anonymity of the communication suggested a legitimacy that warranted further investigation. Her preliminary research into the name Quell revealed surprisingly little information. No prominent families by that name appeared in Nevada business records, social registers, or public databases. The few references she found were fragmentary and contradictory. Scattered mentions in real estate transactions, corporate filings, and legal documents that seemed designed to obscure rather than illuminate the family's activities. But it was this very absence of information that convinced Morrison she had stumbled onto something significant. In an age of increasing digital connectivity and public information accessibility, the ability to maintain such complete anonymity required substantial resources and sophisticated legal expertise. Morrison's investigation led her to the high-stakes world of Nevada land speculation, where enormous fortunes were made and lost in transactions involving thousands of acres of desert property. During the 1990s, rapid population growth in Las Vegas and Reno had created unprecedented demand for land development, attracting investors from around the world who saw Nevada's vast, empty spaces as opportunities for massive profits. Among these investors was Cornelius Blackwood, a billionaire tech entrepreneur whose fortune had been built on early internet infrastructure investments. Blackwood had made headlines in the early 1990s for his prescient bets on companies that would later become household names. But by 1995, he had largely withdrawn from public view, focusing his attention on what he described as private philanthropic projects. Morrison's financial investigation revealed that Blackwood had purchased over 50,000 acres of Nevada desert through a network of shell companies and offshore trusts. The land purchases had been conducted with unusual secrecy, using intermediaries and legal structures that made it virtually impossible to trace the ultimate ownership or intended use of the properties, but public records showed that substantial construction projects had been undertaken on these remote properties throughout the mid-1990s. Building permits, though filed under various corporate names, revealed the development of large residential compounds, security installations, and infrastructure projects that seemed far more extensive than would be necessary for typical desert real estate development. Morrison's breakthrough came when she discovered a connection between Blackwood's land purchases and a series of adoption and foster care agencies that had been established around the same time. These agencies, operating in multiple states, specialized in placing special needs children with families who could provide intensive care and educational services. The agency's records, obtained through Freedom of Information requests and investigative persistence, revealed a pattern of placements that defied conventional foster care protocols. Children were being placed with families in extremely remote locations, often with minimal background checks or follow-up supervision. Most disturbing, Many of these placements involved substantial financial incentives that far exceeded typical foster care compensation. The Quell family appeared in these records as approved foster providers who had received 11 children over a 3-year period from 1994 to 1997. The children, ranging in age from 5 to 14, had been described as having various behavioral, educational, or medical challenges that required specialized care in controlled environments. But when Morrison attempted to verify the Quell family's background and qualifications, she encountered the same pattern of deliberate obscurity that characterized all aspects of the operation. The family's credentials appeared authentic but minimal, with references that led to other entities that were equally difficult to trace or verify. Morrison's investigation took a dramatic turn when she located former employees of the construction companies that had built the Nevada compounds. These workers, bound by non-disclosure agreements but willing to speak anonymously, described projects that went far beyond typical residential construction. The compounds had been designed as completely self-sufficient facilities capable of housing large numbers of people in total isolation. They included their own power generation systems, water treatment facilities, communications equipment, and security installations that rivaled military bases. Most disturbing were descriptions of educational facilities, medical clinics, and what appeared to be behavioral modification centers designed for the systematic conditioning of children. The construction workers reported that the projects had been conducted under extraordinary secrecy, with background checks for all personnel, restrictions on photography or documentation, and compartmentalized work assignments that prevented any individual from understanding the full scope of the facilities. But perhaps most chilling were reports of the children themselves. Workers described seeing groups of children living within the compounds during the construction period, always under strict supervision and never allowed to interact with the construction crews. The children appeared well cared for, but exhibited behaviors that suggested intensive psychological conditioning, moving in formation, responding to subtle signals from adult supervisors, and displaying an unnatural uniformity in their appearance and behavior. Morrison's investigation revealed that Blackwood's operation represented something unprecedented in the intersection of wealth and child welfare. Unlike traditional cases of child abuse or exploitation, this appeared to be a systematic program designed to acquire children through legal channels and subject them to intensive conditioning in completely isolated environments. The children were not being abused in conventional ways. They were receiving excellent medical care, nutrition, education, and housing. But they were also being systematically separated from normal social development and exposed to psychological manipulation that appeared designed to reshape their personalities and capabilities according to predetermined specifications. Financial analysis revealed the staggering cost of the operation. Blackwood had invested an estimated $200 million in land acquisition, construction, and operational expenses for the Nevada compounds. The foster care agencies had been funded through charitable foundations that he controlled, and the Quell family had received compensation that exceeded $100,000 per year for their services as child care providers. But the most disturbing aspect of Morrison's investigation was her discovery that the Nevada operation was not unique. Financial records suggested that similar facilities had been established in at least 4 other states, all funded through Blackwood's network of trusts and corporations, all operating under the same model of legal child acquisition and isolated conditioning. Morrison's attempts to gain access to the Nevada compound were consistently thwarted by sophisticated security measures and legal challenges. The facility was located on private property with no public access, surrounded by electronic surveillance systems and staffed by professional security personnel. Legal attempts to obtain search warrants were blocked by Blackwood's attorneys, who argued that the facility was a private residence protected by constitutional guarantees of privacy and property rights. But Morrison's investigation had attracted the attention of federal authorities, who were beginning to recognize the potential for child welfare violations in operations that were technically legal but ethically questionable. The combination of interstate child placement, substantial financial incentives, and complete isolation from oversight created conditions that could facilitate various forms of exploitation. In September 1999, Morrison published her preliminary findings in a series of articles that generated national attention and prompted congressional hearings on child welfare oversight. Her reporting revealed that wealthy individuals could essentially purchase children through the legal foster care system and subject them to any form of treatment or conditioning they desired, as long as the children's basic physical needs were met. The public response was immediate and intense. Child welfare advocates demanded investigation of the Nevada facilities and reform of foster care regulations that allowed such operations. Privacy rights advocates argued that Blackwood's activities, however unusual, were protected by constitutional guarantees as long as no laws were being violated. But the most significant response came from Blackwood himself, who announced through his attorneys that he was terminating all child care operations and dissolving the various organizations that had supported them. The Nevada compounds would be converted to other uses, the foster care agencies would be closed, and all children in his care would be transferred to conventional placement agencies. Morrison's investigation had succeeded in exposing the operation, but it had also triggered its dissolution before the full scope of the psychological conditioning could be understood, or the long-term effects on the children could be assessed. The 11 children who had lived with the Quell family disappeared into the conventional foster care system, their identities protected by privacy laws, and their experiences sealed by legal settlements that Blackwood's attorneys negotiated with state welfare agencies. But Morrison's reporting had revealed something profoundly disturbing about the intersection of wealth and child welfare in modern America. For individuals with sufficient resources and legal sophistication, the foster care system could be manipulated to provide access to vulnerable children for purposes that had nothing to do with their welfare or best interests. The case raised fundamental questions about the nature of child protection in a society where money could purchase legal access to children and where privacy rights could shield activities that might be harmful but were not obviously illegal. Morrison's investigation was far from over. The dissolution of Blackwood's operation had answered some questions, but raised many others. What has been the ultimate purpose of psychological conditioning? What long-term effects would the children experience? And most importantly, how many other similar operations might be operating in the shadows of America's vast and under-regulated foster care system? The answers to these questions would require years of additional investigation and would ultimately reveal that the macabre history of the Quells was only the beginning of a much larger, the investigation that followed. Morrison's initial expose would ultimately reveal that Cornelius Blackwood's Nevada operation was part of a much larger and more sinister project that had been decades in the making. Federal authorities, prompted by congressional pressure and media attention, launched a comprehensive investigation into Blackwood's activities that would uncover one of the most sophisticated and disturbing cases of child psychological manipulation in American history. FBI Special Agent Michael Torres, who led the federal investigation beginning in late 1999, discovered that Blackwood's interest in child development was not philanthropic but experimental. Documents seized from the Billionaire's corporate headquarters revealed detailed research protocols, psychological assessment data, and long-term studies that treated the children in his care not as individuals to be protected, but as subjects to be analyzed and modified. Blackwood had been conducting what amounted to unauthorized human experimentation on children, using his wealth to create controlled environments where he could test theories about human development, psychological conditioning, and behavioral modification. The Nevada compound operated by the Quell family was one of several research facilities where children were subjected to intensive programs designed to enhance their intelligence, eliminate emotional volatility, and create what Blackwood's internal documents described as optimal human specimens. Dr. Sarah Chun, a federal psychologist brought in to analyze the seized research materials, found evidence of psychological techniques that bordered on torture, disguised as education. The children had been subjected to sleep deprivation, sensory manipulation, pharmaceutical interventions, and behavioral conditioning that violated every established ethical standard for research involving minors. The research protocols revealed Blackwood's ultimate goal: to create a generation of enhanced humans who would be intellectually superior, emotionally controlled, and psychologically conditioned to serve his vision of future society. He viewed normal childhood development as inefficient and corrupted by social influences, believing that children raised in completely controlled environments could achieve capabilities far beyond those of conventionally raised individuals. The 11 children who had lived with the Quell family had been designated as Cohort 7 in Blackwood's research program. They had been selected based on specific genetic, psychological, and behavioral criteria that Blackwood's researchers believed made them suitable for intensive enhancement protocols. Each child had been assigned a detailed development plan that outlined specific modifications to be achieved through conditioning, education, and pharmaceutical intervention. Agent Torres's investigation revealed that the Quell family were not simply foster care providers, but highly trained specialists in child psychology and behavioral modification. Both parents had advanced degrees in psychology and neuroscience, along with specialized training in techniques that were typically used in military and intelligence applications rather than child care. The Nevada compound had been designed as a complete psychological laboratory where every aspect of the children's environment could be controlled and monitored. Hidden cameras and audio recording equipment documented every interaction. Meals were precisely calibrated to deliver specific nutritional and pharmaceutical compounds. Educational activities were designed to test and enhance particular cognitive abilities while suppressing others. Most disturbing were the medical records that revealed the extent of pharmaceutical experimentation conducted on the children. They had been given experimental drugs designed to enhance memory, increase focus, reduce emotional responsiveness, and modify sleep patterns. These medications had been administered without the knowledge or consent of the children, disguised as vitamins or routine medical treatments. Dr. Chun's analysis revealed that several of the children had suffered permanent neurological damage from these pharmaceutical experiments. Brain scans conducted after their removal from the facility showed abnormalities consistent with exposure to powerful psychoactive drugs during critical developmental periods. The psychological conditioning had been equally damaging. The children had been systematically taught to suppress emotional responses, question their own perceptions, and defer to authority figures without hesitation. They had been conditioned to view normal human relationships as weakness and to see themselves as superior to conventionally raised children. When federal agents finally located and interviewed the 11 children from the Nevada facility, they found individuals who were intellectually advanced but emotionally damaged in ways that might never be fully reversible. The children could perform complex mathematical calculations, speak multiple languages, and demonstrate knowledge far beyond their years, but they struggled with basic emotional expression and human connection. Torres's investigation revealed that Blackwood's operation had been funded through a network of research grants, government contracts, and private investments that totaled over $500 million. The billionaire had convinced investors and government agencies that his research would produce breakthroughs in education, child development, and human potential that would benefit society. But the real purpose had been to create what Blackwood viewed as a new class of human beings, individuals who would be intellectually superior to normal people, but psychologically conditioned to serve his vision of social organization. He believed that democracy and individual freedom were obstacles to human progress, and that future society should be led by enhanced individuals who could make rational decisions without being influenced by emotion or personal interest. The children in his care were being prepared to become the leaders and administrators of this future technocratic society. They were being conditioned to view normal humans as inferior and to accept their role as benevolent rulers who would make decisions for the benefit of humanity without being constrained by democratic institutions or individual rights. Financial analysis revealed that Blackwood had been planning to expand his operation dramatically. Documents found in his facilities outlined plans for additional compounds in multiple countries, with the goal of creating a global network of child development centers that could produce thousands of enhanced individuals over the next several decades. The investigation also uncovered evidence that Blackwood had been working with researchers and government officials in other countries who shared his beliefs about the necessity of human enhancement and social reorganization. The Nevada operation was intended as a proof of concept that could be replicated internationally, creating a coordinated global effort to produce a new class of enhanced humans. But perhaps most chilling was the discovery that Blackwood's program had been partially successful. Several of the children who had been in his care for extended periods showed intellectual capabilities that exceeded normal human ranges, along with psychological characteristics that made them highly effective at leadership and problem-solving tasks. However, these enhancements had come at enormous cost to their emotional development and psychological health. The children were brilliant but damaged, capable but incapable of normal human relationships, intellectually advanced but psychologically stunted in ways that might never be corrected. Dr. Chun's final report concluded that Blackwood had succeeded in creating enhanced humans, but at the cost of their fundamental humanity. The children were living proof that human enhancement was possible, but also evidence that such enhancement might be incompatible with the emotional and social development necessary for psychological health. The legal challenges were enormous. Blackwood had violated numerous federal laws related to child welfare, human experimentation, and pharmaceutical regulations. But he had also created children whose capabilities exceeded normal human ranges, raising questions about their future care and integration into society. The enhanced children could not be returned to normal foster care because their abilities and conditioning made them incompatible with conventional child development programs. But they also could not be allowed to remain in Blackwood's care because of the damage that further conditioning might cause. Federal authorities ultimately placed the children in specialized care facilities designed for individuals with exceptional abilities and psychological challenges. These facilities provided advanced education and therapy while attempting to address the emotional and social damage caused by their conditioning. Blackwood himself fled the United States before federal authorities could arrest him, using his wealth and international connections to establish residence in countries without extradition treaties. He continued his research from exile, publishing papers that defended his methods and argued that human enhancement was necessary for the survival of civilization. The Nevada compound was eventually demolished, but the questions raised by Blackwood's operation continue to resonate. The case demonstrated that sufficient wealth could purchase access to children and create conditions for systematic abuse disguised as research or education. More troubling was the evidence that human enhancement was technically possible, raising questions about the ethics and desirability of creating individuals with capabilities beyond normal human ranges. The enhanced children were living proof that such modifications could be achieved, but also evidence of the enormous psychological costs involved. The 11 children who had been designated as Cohort 7 grew up to become adults whose exceptional abilities were accompanied by profound emotional and social challenges. Some achieved remarkable success in academic and professional fields, using their enhanced intellectual capabilities to make significant contributions to science and technology. but all of them struggled with relationships, emotional regulation, and the psychological legacy of their conditioning. They remained connected to each other through shared experience, but isolated from normal human society by the very enhancements that made them exceptional. The macabre history of the Quells ultimately revealed the dark potential of unlimited wealth, combined with unregulated access to vulnerable children. Blackwood had demonstrated that money could purchase the opportunity to conduct human experimentation on a scale that would have been impossible through legitimate research channels. His legacy continues to influence debates about human enhancement, child welfare, and the regulation of research involving minors. The children he enhanced serve as both proof of human potential and warning about the costs of pursuing that potential without regard for human dignity and psychological health. The case established new federal protocols for oversight of privately funded child care facilities and research involving minors. But it also raised fundamental questions about the nature of human enhancement and whether society should pursue capabilities that might be possible but psychologically destructive. Somewhere in the world, Cornelius Blackwood continues his research, using his wealth and connections to explore the boundaries of human enhancement. The children he damaged serve as living reminders that the pursuit of human perfection can exact costs that make the achievement meaningless. Their story warns that the greatest threats to children might not come from obvious predators, but from those who view childhood as raw material for their vision of human improvement, and who possess the resources to transform their theories into devastating reality. Thank you for watching another tale unfold here on NW Storytime. Every story hides a secret, and tonight you uncovered another one. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this mystery, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us keep the secrets alive. Until next time, stay curious,